Hello, everyone. Dr. Yo here with an unedited video to answer your questions. Today, we're going to be answering the question of whether you can still recover from chronic dizziness symptoms when there are sources of stress in your life that you can't change or escape. And I want to start off by answering and saying, yes, you can still recover. So if that's what you came for, you can stop the video now. But I'm going to go into a little bit more depth into the answer to this question because it's one of my favorite questions. And ultimately, I want to say that if you've watched many of my videos or listened to a lot of my content, it can give the impression that I'm saying that stress is bad and that in order to get better from chronic dizziness symptoms, you have to reduce stress. When people hear that, they think, okay, so then I have all these problems in my life. I have this stressful relationship, or I'm a caregiver for someone. How in the world am I supposed to reduce that stress? I can't change that. And they feel really discouraged. So I want to go into a little more depth today and explain what I mean by stress and why you actually have so much more agency than you think about changing your stress levels, even without having to change your outside circumstances specifically. So, again, I use the word stress because stress is a relatable term. Many people coming to my channel have no idea that their symptoms are related to stress at all. But the big factors in whether chronic dizziness symptoms persist are twofold. There is some relationship with outside stress. So there may be things in your life that need to change, that you can change. There may be a job that you need to leave, there may be a relationship that's not working, etc. But by far, to me, the biggest contributor here is inside stress, how your brain, how your body are responding to the sources of stress from the outside. And this is good news because you have a whole lot of ability to change that second factor. Whereas, again, like we discussed, many of you are in situations that aren't going to change substantially on the outside, even with your best intentions. So, here's how I will explain this. And you've probably heard me give this example in previous videos, but I'm going to be really quick. We have two people who work the same job. One of them has a history of being yelled at and treated very poorly by his parents. The other one does not. When the boss yells at them, who's going to have the bigger danger mode response inside his or her body? The one who had the poor childhood experience, right? Now, does that mean that person on the outside is going to show more fear or be more perturbed? No, not at all. In fact, sometimes people who've gone through those experiences end up very stoic. They end up very repressive. They push down those feelings because they're so overwhelming. But on the inside, the stress is going to be greater for the person who had some of those past experiences. And that internal response can change. It can change, but it requires us to be aware of it. And I want to illustrate the importance of awareness with this other ridiculous metaphor that I often give people. Would you rather be trapped in a room with a tiger or in a forest with a tiger? Probably neither, right? But if you had to choose, you'd take the woods, right? Why? Because you can escape. You have choices. You can climb trees, you can run away, you can hide. In a small room, it's game over, right? So the possibility of choices, even in a dangerous situation, even if really the objective is the same, survival, that seems a lot less dangerous to our brain. That situation in which we have choices feels less dangerous to the brain. So the same principle applies in your daily life. Some of your stresses on a large scale can't be escaped. But the small decisions you make about those stressors are choices. And being aware that those actually are choices that you are making, and we'll talk about that in a little more depth in a moment, that already can provide some relief, a little bit less stress. I am choosing to respond to my loved one this way. I am choosing to be here in this relationship. Again, it doesn't mean that you really feel like there are other choices, but being aware that you're making them, that it's not just happening to you, already takes a little bit of the stress off of you. But that may lead you to ask this question. I'm not really making this choice, Yonit. I have to care for my loved one. I'm a caregiver. I'm not really making this decision, Yonit. I have to have this job because otherwise I won't be able to feed my family. So again, they're on a macro level, it may feel like you don't have big choices. And this is where we want to take an even more nuanced approach and ask, how are your automatic reactions to this situation increasing your internal stress? So, all of us throughout our entire lives develop automatic reactions to the situations that come up in our lives based on our past experiences. So, in my example previously, that guy may have learned to be very stoic because if he wasn't stoic as a kid, he'd get punished. Okay. For example. So, all of us have these parts of us, all of us have these reaction patterns that are rooted in our past experiences that are not from now. They're just being activated in response to whatever is going on right now. When we're more aware of those patterns, that opens up choices. Now, does that mean you're going to behave differently on the outside? Does it mean that Mr. Stoic is going to now have to yell at his boss? No. But when he feels that stoic reaction come up, he can say, hang on, I'm going into stoic mode right now. What's that about? Something about this is bothering me. This is reminding my brain of this past dangerous experience. Thank you, brain, for reminding me this actually isn't the same experience. So, this process would take 10 seconds. It's not like you have to sit down and journal about all the times anyone's ever yelled at you, but recognizing your reactive patterns and pausing and saying, I'm doing this because, and giving yourself both self compassion, so recognizing what needs aren't being met that might be causing this pattern to come up, and also taking that moment to actively make the choice about your behavior, that changes the entire game. That changes the whole game in terms of how much stress this puts you under in that moment. So if this is difficult for you to understand, I'm going to give you another example. Let's just say you're a mom or a dad, you have young children who are jerks because young children are jerks, right? And let's just say your child, like one of mine, doesn't like to eat dinner. Okay. And you've prepared dinner and the kid's got to eat because if she doesn't, she's going to be hungry later and it's going to cause all sorts of problems. So, in the moment, it can be very easy to go into battle mode, right? Okay, well, now I'm going to steel myself and battle it out. Or it could be easy to go into caregiver mode and mollify and soften. Oh, okay, well, let's see how we can accommodate you and try to, again, neither of these things are bad. These are not bad reactions. But if I automatically go with one of those reactions, I don't feel like I'm giving myself choices. I'm reacting to some need of mine without realizing it. If I take a moment and say, okay, this is bothering me not just because I want her to go to bed, but because this reminds me of some other times when I wasn't getting my needs met, when I felt like other people were taking advantage of me. That could come up. This reminds me of times when I was a kid and I didn't want to eat and people forced me to, or the opposite, no one cared enough to force me to eat. Again, these are just silly examples, but there's always some story there to why we're having the reactions we are. Once we do that, again, and we take that pause, we see if there's an option. We see if there's another option to get our needs met. And there may not be. And we may choose to do exactly the same thing. But in that moment of awareness, there is choice. When we are aware we're making a choice, when we're not just reacting, when we're responding, that is a heck of a lot less stressful than being on autopilot and stressing ourselves out all the time. I know this is a little bit of a complicated concept, so I hope that this was helpful. And the bottom line here, even if that explanation didn't quite resonate or you didn't quite understand the concepts I'm trying to explain today, again, they're hard concepts. What I encourage you to do is know that outside stress doesn't mean that you can't recover. It's about changing your internal narrative more than anything else. And part of that narrative is awareness of the narrative, being aware of the story you're telling yourself, being aware of your reactive patterns, that reduces stress tremendously. And that's the key to recovering, even if the outside stress has not changed. All right. I hope that was helpful, guys. I look forward to your questions and comments. And if you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye bye.